Andrew, by the way, somebody called and asked when Christine said that the city is the third highest when it comes to brutal crime or whatever, and the top 10 highest in America. She's talking about Jackson, Mississippi, which is where she is now. So it's not necessarily Utica, Rome, the Mohawk Valley. But Christine, I feel bad because you're not able to sample the beer.
I know. That's the worst part of not being here.
Well, it is what it is.
And this is a good one, too, with the lavender in it. Oh.
Kevin Malott is a security expert, terrorism analyst, and he's on now. Does more security at airports make us safer, or, Kevin, is it just making us more of a target? That would be the question, Andrew. Is he there? Do you want to double-check on that? Yeah, you're there. So my question is, more security, is it going to make us safer, or does it make us more of a target?
Well, I think that our security makes us feel better, but I don't think it really affects the adversary. They're going to carry out the attacks where and when they feel like it under our situation. So could we displace the target from one place to another by our actions and our type of security? Yes, but there's so many soft targets in the U.S. because of our normal day-to-day lifestyle that they'll find a place to do it. I mean, it's not going to be for them to carry it out.
You know, I was flying back in the spring from Orlando, and the Orlando International Airport, which is extremely busy, especially spring break. And there would be no way in hell they could get everybody out if they did their normal standard security. So it became kind of like a rally. You had the agents going around, and they're like chanting, and they're getting people, they're joking. They're yelling out, don't worry about your shoes. Put all your belongings into your bag. We're going through this fast. They were moving people. You didn't stop moving, unlike normal security time. The line was constantly moving. And I wonder, it was a great experience for us, and actually it was somewhat enjoyable. They made it somewhat enjoyable. But were we safer?
Well, I guess the question would be the potential for someone sliding something through because you're going too fast versus the potential of someone coming up on the unsecured side of the airport and taking a bunch of people out waiting to get through security. I mean,
okay.
You got to have enough smarts to measure where your real big picture risk is at.
Right.
Some of these lines that I've seen, because I fly all the time, some of these lines have become so rich of a target that one individual could have way more impact than a typical five-man team would make in an attack because they're all standing in a giant open area.
Yeah.
And the use of explosives, which they're very skilled at, means that you can take out a large area because the shock wave travels for great distances. So there comes a point in time, and so that what you're telling me makes me happy about the fact that someone in charge of that location said, look, the ultimate goal is to save as many as possible. Let's move these guys through. Let's go.
I never really thought about that we were just a standing target right there when you're waiting for an hour and a half in line. Never thought about it that way. Interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with guys who will kill themselves, and this is really different. We've got a lot of people in the U.S. government that kind of think, well, they're criminals. They're not criminals. They're terrorists. There's a real different thought process. And when they're willing to die in the process of the attack, they don't have to get to point A to get the same effect. They could be a standoff point C.
Right.
If they have an explosive device that they're willing to die with, they'll still get the people between point A and C. So it's a different kind of scenario than trying to stop a single individual that might be a shooter or someone with an edged weapon. And that requires a lot of dynamics to be able to adjust to the moment.
We're seeing now, like the situation that happened in Orlando, seems to be a crazy guy that became inspired or in some way over the years was inspired by the Taliban and ISIS and all of that. But going in and willing to shoot up a place and knowing his life is going to be taken. How long before we're dealing with what they're dealing with in the Middle East, where you get some young male or female or even child, you strap a bomb on them and they walk into a place? How do we prevent that in, let's say, a place like Times Square?
Well, they're here already. We just arrested a guy 2 days ago. I think it was in Phoenix. They picked him up. We got a guy in Virginia that got picked up yesterday. There's guys inside the U.S. that are going to carry out plots. It's just a question of whether we capture them fast enough before they carry it out.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen is really concerning me down the road is as they find out we're closing in, they'll start setting off devices where they are. It's gonna be on the increase, because what we're doing with like increased security here or there, a change of policy, is we're knee-jerk reacting to the attack instead of going after the organization that orders the attacks. We really need to take this to the ideology. We have to call it for what it is. And it's really funny, we call it radical Islam, but the guys that are in the terrorist groups say they're mainstream Islam, and everybody else who's Islamic, who doesn't agree with their tactics, is a liberal or a false Muslim. And that's how they refer to them.
Right.
So they think they're mainstream. Well, we need to go after the headquarters in Raqqa, Syria of ISIL, wipe it out, just take it out and get it over with. We need to get our allies in the Middle East and throughout the rest of the world, because remember, Malaysia is the largest Islamic country, and they're in Southeast Asia. So we need to get the Islamic clerics in Southeast Asia, in India, in the Middle East, in Africa, to stand up and say, look, that was the 7th century. Those tactics, that kind of behavior is no longer acceptable, and you're not doing the right thing that God wants you to do if you carry out these kind of attacks.
Yeah.
We need them to do it. We're never going to do it from the adversarial point, and every religion that's not Islamic is adversarial in their mind. And keep in mind that ISIL is okay with killing other Muslims. They've killed more Muslims than they have Christians and Jews and Buddhists and Hindus. So that you need someone to stand up to say to the potential recruits that might align themselves with ISIL that is not where God wants you to be. And it can't be anybody but leaders of the Islamic faith that do that.
Listen, 7th century mentality with a 21st century technology. Scary. Very scary.
If we didn't have airplanes and the Internet, we wouldn't have this problem.
Yeah. Kevin Malott.
There for a long time.
Just incredible. Kevin, thanks so much for your time. We always appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
All right, quick break with the news coming up. And then for the Boilermakers, Saturday night, Billy Joel Tribute Concert is the Boilermakers show that'll happen on Saturday. It's going to be awesome, and it's all coming up. We'll have some performance in studio by a couple people we know quite well here. Coming up on WIBX.